Well, welcome to today's webinar, everyone. So I'm talking with Spencer, and he's going to talk to us. He's with Home Genius Exteriors, and let him do an intro. And he can do much better than I can here. And he's going to chat with today about how he's grown his company overall, and in multiple companies that he's been a part of. So I appreciate your time, Spencer, today, spending here with us and diving in with us.
Hi. Well, thank you. Yeah, my name is Spencer Pepe. I live in California, and right now I'm sitting here in Palm Springs trying to enjoy the warm weather here. So, anyways, yeah, I've been in home improvement for over 35 years. It started with when I was in college. I had to pay my way through school, so I knocked on doors and I sold paint jobs. So that's kind of the first iteration of home improvement for me. Was about 10 years primarily in painting and hiring students. We had a company called College Works Painting, and that company still exists today. And we teach college students how to run their own business. But it started just with me knocking on doors and hiring my fraternity brothers to paint houses with me and earn more money in summers than I could earn working at the cafeteria at school. So that's where it all started. What we learned as we were growing that business to about $30 million is that painting was very difficult to scale. So while we had big plans and wanted to use my college business degree to grow a business and perhaps stay in home improvement, painting was difficult to scale. So I took a sabbatical at first and scaled a whole different industry. I think a lot of my experience comes from, I was in mortgages for 10 years. And in subprime mortgage, with people with B and C credit. So, the idea of running a call center, working internet leads, scaling that way was a lot easier than knocking on doors. So it's like, for me, first, it started as a marketing driven function of, okay, if it rains leads in here, I just have to have a call center that set up the appointments for my loan officer. So that seemed a lot easier to scale. Obviously, what I learned through all that and I can apply to home improvement today is that, well, it may rain leads, but they come at a cost, right? Sean knows, because he's the rainmaker. It comes at a cost for him, and then obviously he's got to make profit, and then I've got to take those leads and do the same. So being very, very metric driven. I don't consider myself a true marketer. I don't know what Sean knows about making leads, although I just hired a CMO recently now at Home Genius. But I was a buyer of leads for a long time. So it's like buying the lead, the return on investment, how many times you have to call the lead, CRMs, all that stuff kind of was learned in the mortgage days. So National Services Group, we have several different companies, but we went from painting and we decided to, as I got out of mortgages, to go back into home improvement, and we scaled up a couple things. We have a commercial painting company that isn't lead driven at all. So that's, the classic account executive going to different property management companies, and they source their own leads. And that model is our cash cow today. It's over $100 million of business, primarily doing painting, siding, roofing, but all on a more of a commercial level for like condominium complexes, high rises, things like that. Okay. So about 4 years ago, we entered back into the world. I'm assuming everybody in this call is that we wanted to scale another business in home improvement, but just pick different services like roofing, gutters, things like that, things that we identified that were more scalable and easier to give to a subcontractor to produce the job in one day. Believe it or not, a $5,000 paint job, we could be on that job for a week and the customer could not like the color day one, day two, day three. Like there's a lot of things that go into that made it difficult for us to scale. Roofing, as we all know, can get done in a day. Gutters can get done in a day. So, and I don't have to own the labor. So subcontractor. So we could just focus on buying leads like Sean's leads at Contractor Appointments and other sources, and building a call center around that. That seemed very familiar to me from the mortgage days. I think home improvement is not as highly organized as the loan business is. There's a lot of very, very sophisticated players. I'm learning in home improvement, there are some, but compared to mortgages, it's a whole different world. So I was excited to get back into home improvement and take that call center experience, that lead buying experience, and applying it to this industry. So did that about 4 years ago, and we've more than doubled every year. We did 2 million that first year. We did 32 million last year, and we'll probably do over 70 million this year.
That's huge.
So all in scaling up, primarily internet leads, and we still do some door knocking. So yes.
Yeah. What's your kind of marketing mix right now between kind of all internet leads and door knocking?
Well, it's interesting. We went to some of this, probably the same conferences that many of you guys went to, like the 500, the Fast Remodeler, and all that stuff. And some of the key CMOs up there were saying, "Hey, we're going into a recession this year. Leads could dry up. We got to do more face-to-face marketing." So face-to-face could be, for some of them, is more home shows, door knocking. So that is certainly a more aggressive part of our mix this year. And that's not what Sean's selling today, but that's a bigger part of our mix. It's about 30% of our business, but last year it was probably 5%.
Okay.
But what I found interesting is that while we all know that winter is coming and recession, is certainly affecting new housing starts, but we have more leads now than ever before. Like scaling this year, for me, my biggest roadblock this year in the markets that we are in is that we don't have enough salespeople. So when I say not enough, we more than doubled in February, our sales staff. And now we realize we need to double again. So if I could take the lead volume that I see out there now in the 4 markets that I'm in and take it all. And when I say take it all at a cost of marketing under 17%, for example. Doesn't mean I like 17%. I have some at 10, I have some at 6, I have some, but I want all the leads. And, in order to do that, I am doubling my sales force again right now and going to have that ready to launch mid-June. And by July, we will be on $100 million trajectory, to be honest. I just wish I knew that in February. Instead of being in a more, guarded, we'll grow a little bit from canvassing and maybe expect shrinkage on the internet side. I'm not seeing that at all. So maybe it exists for people out there. I'm not seeing it. I see, I could be 100. I could go from 30 to 100 million this year. I'm a little late to the party at hiring people and, that are going to, get new appointments in July by the time I train them.
Well, that's great. That's a great problem to be in. Overall, let's have more appointments. And out of curiosity, how many appointments per day are your sales reps running? Are they running 3 appointments a day on average, or?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we solved this problem last year by running 4 appointments a day. And we actually felt like the customer experience and our HRE, which is our salespeople experience, was very strained. It's logistically, could you run 4 appointments a day? Maybe a gutter appointment, right? But not a roof, not a $20,000 value of a customer, right? So it was a big departure for us to go, this is going to hurt our capacity more, but we're going to go from 4 appointments to 3 a day. So that was a big culture shift for us to go to 3 appointments a day. And to be between you and me, I don't want our sales reps running 3 a day. I know with cancellations and moving around and if they run 2 appointments a day, they're well fed. If they're running 3 or 4, they're not spending enough time closing. They're thinking about the next appointment they have to go to.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
That's right. I think that's with abundance, just like we saw with COVID, that we saw a lot of companies trying to feed their sales reps an additional appointment, every
That's
single
what we
day.
did last year, and it was a mistake.
Yeah. And I've heard very much the same thing as well, as that, your sales reps like, yeah, they're judging the current appointment just to think about what the potential of the next one. And there's almost too much that a sales rep has on their docket on a daily basis. Out of curiosity, when you're hiring salespeople, are you, this is beside the some of the questions here, but you're sparking some interest, some things that off the top of my head here is, when you're hiring sales reps right now, are you giving a base plus commission, or are you giving a base against
100% commission?
100% commission. Are you having trouble finding good sales reps out there?
2 years ago, yes. Today, no. But for a different reason that you might think, right? So granted, maybe the labor market's a little bit easier now. 2 years ago, we were offering training pay for 6 weeks. Now we offer it for 2. So I don't want to say that there's nothing, but it's like in 2 weeks of training, we'll give you $100 a day type thing, right? Yep. If you would have asked me 2 years ago if I could attract people to that, I would say no. Like, that's why it's so hard. We can't find enough reps, and the reps that we find are not the right reps, or weak, or super green behind the ears. I heard something at a conference, because I'm a marketer, right? I'm the president of the company, but I'm a marketer, but not a marketer like Sean. I'm a buyer of leads. So I'm looking at it as a marketer going, well, somebody, a CMO, it might have been from West Shore, I think. So somebody from West Shore said that they treat recruiting like marketing, right? So I left that meeting and I went, what's my cost per applicant? How many applicants do I drive in? Who's calling those applicants? And I found everything around that was run by the inmates in the asylum. Like there was like our canvassing managers doing their own ads and setting up their own interviews and failing like crazy, and using the tight labor market as I can't find canvassers. The sales managers, the same thing. I can't hire people. There's no good people. Yep. Well, so all I did as a marketer is I'm like, well, then I'm going to take it all away from you guys and have my call center control all of that. And when I did that, I've never had a hiring problem again. My only problem is I have a hiring problem today, but it'll be solved in 4 weeks, because I know how many people I need to hire. It takes me 4 weeks to hire 50 more salespeople. But I know how many callers I need. I know how many ads I need to run. I know what the cost per applicant. I have the same metrics
that's huge. I think you're very much correct. And the recruiting side of things is just, you get resumes in the door, just like you get online leads in the door, and you got to call those applicants, because those people are just clicking buttons online looking for a job, and they clicked on one.
You need dedicated recruiters and callers to do that, because if you allow your managers to multitask, then they're not doing enough mid calls. They're not sitting in at enough appointments. You might be able to drive them or micromanage them to do it, but they're failing because you've given them too much to do.
Yep.
So I didn't, for 2 years, we blamed the canvassing managers. We blamed the salespeople. We blamed the production people for not hiring the key employees. Now we took it all away from them, and just they're responsible for training and onboarding, not for recruiting.
No, I love that. I think that's just a piece of specialization there too, right? It's, just like you have your call center, who's specifically in charge of taking a raw lead into an appointment. You're just specializing that same position. I think that's awesome. So I think that's it. That's huge. I talked to companies that struggle with hiring salespeople, struggling with hiring, period. But a lot of that function is put on the sales manager to do that. And that's one of the many hats they wear. And, they'll be overcritical of resumes or undercritical, or, they get to the resumes when they get to them.
Everybody always finds something to complain about when you take it away from them. So now they complain that they're not the right hires. And so we're like, okay, then you can do the final interview.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give you 10 interviews this week. Are you ready to do it?
Yep.
Right. So that's fine. So some of them have more control or less control over the final hiring decision, but we're going to feed them more people than they can handle. Like that's not an issue anymore. Right.
That's amazing. So in scaling here, I'm curious sounds like, how many sales reps do you have now? So give us some context for where
we have about 75 sales people right now. I would say on a typical day, about 50 would be scheduled for any day of work, except for maybe Sundays, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You just have them kind of rotating schedules of,
Mhm.
which days that they're working and whatnot.
Yes.
No, absolutely.
And all the excuses that come with having
Yeah.
employees, right? People schedule that still don't show up. Yes.
Yeah. So out of curiosity, so, and you're adding 50 new sales reps on top of that in June. That's the plan.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what kind of systems and processes have you had to put, like, those are some massive scale, that you've had to increase the numbers, on that side of things. And what systems and processes have you had to put in place from, like, just even from a managerial structure of going, like, I'm going to add 50 new sales reps. Does that mean you're adding 5 new managers to your team to manage,
No, because with attrition and everything else, we have 1 or 2 sales managers per MSA, and we've got 6
Okay.
MSAs right now. So metro service areas.
Yep.
So sometimes that second one is probably going to be the replacement of the first, but with the amount of people that we have and the training that we have, we could support 2.
Yep.
So it's when you think about it that way, if there's 6 areas, that means they're managing maybe 10 on average, right?
Yep.
Each. So I don't know what the right number is. I don't know we haven't quite figured that out, how many they can support or manage. We know that we have a lot of, we have a VP in every market that really is a sales manager as well. So it's like you have the sales manager, you have a VP in each market. And so they share in the training responsibilities when we're pushing big classes through.
Yep.
We feel we're at a size now that we need a national trainer. We feel like that's the next position that we have to interview for. So a lot of that training we can take out of the sales managers because it takes the sales managers out of the field. So we think the sales managers can probably handle 15 or 20 each, but we have to then have specialists support them in different ways.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And part of that supporting is that we're already like what we do to let the sales manager manage more is we find that a big part of their day, Sean, is in logistics. Well, who's going to run this appointment? Oh, this is a really good appointment. It's a contractor appointment. It's already set with the confirmed time. So we have a hierarchy of lead scoring of what a good appointment is. And of course, you want your best reps running your best appointments, right? Well, that is probably making the sales managers paper pushers more than we want. So we've added logistics as another support tool for them that they're not
worried about.
They can tell us which reps they want. And we honestly, we don't care. As a marketer, I know who the NSLI is.
Yeah.
Right. So our highest NSLI net sales per lead issue is going to be, so our best reps are going to run our best leads. But also logistically, it has to make sense. So we're adding to that right now and we're revamping logistics. So the sales managers don't have to spend any time doing that. We only want them doing ride-alongs and mid-calls. That's what we want them doing. So anything that we can take away from them doing that, that's what we're doing so they can handle more people. But I still don't know the answer to your question, like what's the right number that they need to do. We're still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, well, I think that's I've heard many different things over the years from leadership books or all that kind of stuff. Or one just I think that's an ongoing question. I think in the industry at large in managing. But it sounds like you're adding you're taking additional functions off their plate though.
Yes.
So they're not.
If I can take training and logistics off, then maybe it's 20.
Yeah.
Right now, my gut says it's 10, but I'm gonna break my own rule and give them more and see what happens. So yeah.
Well, I think part of that is depending on how the maturity the rest of the team is and how your team is structured and accountability.
Well, our next sales manager is that we take leads. We take some of our best guys and they mentor 2 people each. So there is in that org chart sales managers that become directors, and then we take some of our better guys that are good with that we think would be our next managers that have mini teams. That's how we're leveraging it right now.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
So out of curiosity, obviously you have 6 MSAs, correct? Right now. So 6 markets that you guys are in across the country. I mean, you're in California. You're running this business.
Yeah, and it's not one of our MSAs. My business partner is in Maryland. So that's one of our MSAs because he's there. It wasn't a plan. It's just he happened to live out there and he wanted to start that. He's my business partner is also our CEO, Jeff Gunnis. So he's got a better title than me, but I get the same pay. So, but he just happened to be out there. So that's where we started. To be honest, we had a bunch of College Works painting division. Our DNA comes from the guys that were knocking on doors and selling paint jobs. So we pretty much retooled like the whole East Coast of divisions that we had there and put them into, roofing and gutters, windows, siding. Yeah.
Gotcha. So, and that's what I was going to ask is like, what made you choose those markets over others?
People. I think we weren't smart enough to know where's the best place to go. We just happened to have the best people that were stuck in a painting model that we were having difficulty scaling. So we were either going to lose them or we were going to start a new business. So we started a new business. That's kind of how it started.
No, that's very cool. And then, I think as you go into, is your plan to kind of scale out into other geographic areas, as you go here, or is that what?
I mean, our DNA is to plant 30 flags like in 5 years, right?
Okay.
But it's like we went from 4 flags to 6 flags this year. Much slower than what I'm used to, probably because we think that what we're learning in scale is that it's easier to add a service than it is to add a flag. So it's like we have really, really good production coordinators, subcontractors. So you have this network of production that delivers, 100% predictable gross profit. That's not the easiest part to build.
Yeah.
So it's easier to layer on a service. So we still don't think we're great at selling windows. So that would probably be the next push. So we'll probably layer one more service, because layering a service isn't just a production issue as well. It's like, what is the bandwidth of what your salespeople can handle to learn?
Yeah.
Right. And sell really well. We've had a false launch with Windows because we can cross sell it really well. But going head to head with your leads, Sean, anyone's leads, where we have to be able to play with the big boys, we're not ready for Windows. And we may need a national trainer to be ready. Like I said, I know that's a position I need to fill. That maybe it's because our sales managers don't have the bandwidth to layer something on, but it's a lot easier to layer on a service than plant 6 more flags, put it that way. Because the VP caliber person that I have to open up a new market, it's a lot harder to find that person.
Yeah.
So we are probably a year out from rapid expansion, but we're still 2Xing every year. So it's still pretty good.
Well, I think that's a huge, you guys have grown dramatically in your current markets. 4 markets isn't small by any means, but you're still in very, very competitive markets overall in the country. So I think it's always surprising is seeing what you guys are doing from a revenue standpoint, even in comparison to the other large companies that are in that same space. You guys are competing very, very well. So so as far as the layering of different services, let's talk about that for a second. It's like roofing is your primary trade, correct? That's like the bread and butter. And then you're layering on gutters or windows or siding off of that.
Yeah, mostly cross-selling. Yeah.
And so has there been, so roofing's still the primary driver. Is there any other kind of, trade that you guys have taken? Like you said, you tried windows and selling windows kind of, but that's an extremely,
it'll still be 10 or 15% of our business, but it's not coming from me buying. Like there's more window leads available out there, as you know, Sean, than roofing leads, right? So they're readily available. They're cheap to come by, but we're just not good at selling it yet. So we're very humble in that we don't know everything about everything. We know a lot about a few things, right? So, Windows is the next one for us. So we just know that we're not ready to scale up the lead volume because we're not good at selling it yet. So
no, for sure. So I think that's Windows is a tough one. That is like some of the largest companies in the country. Windows is their bread and butter. There is still very few roofing companies that have scaled on a nationwide.
It's hard to get leads. It's not hard for me, but when we started, our growth was always limited by the number of leads we could get This
Mhm.
is the first year that it's the opposite. I have plenty of leads, and now I'm scrambling to hire more salespeople to accommodate them.
Yeah, well, that's a great problem to be in.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Hmm.
that's awesome. So I think the next other question I had here for you, it looks like we do have a couple questions coming in from the audience here too, was uh, um, so when you say salesperson, is that person doing any of like installation work or repair work? Repair was the other question that was in here too. Are they just bringing in a combo of just solely new jobs for roofing, or are they selling jobs for roofing, windows, siding? Are you having them sell all the different trades there too? Each of them salespeople.
We would say that anything that gets us in front of a customer, it is our HRE's job to do a full home inspection. So we may go out there for gutters, and we're going to sell them a roof and
Got it.
right.
Yep.
So we are not picky. When I first started this business, I looked for any and all reasons to return leads and say, this didn't meet my scope. Right. Well, the more that I wrap my brain around this, I'm like, well, that's a lose-lose. Like the lead, it still costs the lead provider something. And like, yes, I can look at the fine print of a return policy and say, I don't, want this lead. But then when I ask for a discount a year later for volume discount, it's like, well, you have too many returns. So I kind of shoot myself in the foot. So I've gotten out of the return game and more in if there's any reason a customer wants us to come out, we're going to come out. We don't tell the salespeople don't get to pick. They don't know what kind of appointment it's going to be. They're supposed to, they're supposed to do a full home inspection for roofing, siding, windows, and gutters. And based on the age and what they find, then they make their recommendations. So going with that in mind, our call center is not supposed to really be screening for scope of work.
Gotcha.
If they want us to come out, we're coming out.
So you're just making sure both homeowners are going to be home, and
Most important piece.
Yep. And then you're just saying we'll be
frustrating sometimes for customers because they may just want, they're like, why do I need two people to put gutter covers on my house? Like it's frustrating. So we have to be careful. We have a phrase in our call center called "Don't make it weird." Right. So we have to be careful. And that's the hardest thing to teach is time scrubbing to our call center. But we have our tricks. We have our ways of doing it.
Yep.
By teaching the value of a full home inspection, even if they're not interested in other things, right? But I'm sorry, if I crawl in your attic and I find water spots, you're now interested, even though that's not why I came out, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
No, that's very cool. So is that how you're kind of upselling roofing on a gutter job, is when you're going out there and kind of doing the full attic inspection?
We have to we get in everyone's gutters. I mean, in everyone's attic. We have also our phones have big sticks on them, so we can get up on it. We try to discourage a lot of ladder type of stuff, but they have ladders too. We're trying to just see what everything looks like.
Yep.
So we can let that drive what the needs are. The customer knows what they want. It's our job to find what they need.
No, I love that. Well, and so out of curiosity, when you're trying to keep them off ladders, on for sales reps there, are you ordering eagle views ahead of time on every roof and doing ahead of time? Or are you actually having sales reps out there, measuring roofs and to give prices immediately?
Well, we use a measurement tool like Eagle View for that, but that wouldn't drive need. That just gives us us measurements. I mean, maybe somebody's figured out how to home in and do that, but no, our raw pictures that we bring in and show the customer is what drives need.
Yep.
Right.
But as far as price,
if the gutters from the outside look perfectly fine, but in the inside they're completely clogged, then we found something to sell, even if that's not what we were out there to do.
Right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's great, because I can see multiple pieces of kind of even presentation of what different options you have. And I think most companies, they end up going in there every lead, just like you said, they take a roofing lead and they try to disqualify it in their call center. And if they didn't disqualify it, then they set it into an appointment.
We've
And
been there. We've been
and-
there where the sales manager told us what they want set up, and they used to run our CSR trainings. We kicked them out last year. We're like, you're not going to tell us what to do. I'm the president. You're going to run what I give you.
Yep.
Right. And the moment the sales managers were taken out of it, actually they were relieved because they thought they were doing our job for us. Right. And we need them to focus on their job. But the moment I kicked them out, my conversions went up. My conversions are higher now than they were a year ago. So, but does that mean that there aren't reps out there complaining and belly aching that this is a waste of their time? Always. Yeah.
Always. But that's even on a qualified lead that the sales rep, the caller tried to, get that person disqualified. But at the end of the day, homeowners want you to say, yeah, we'd love to come out there and take a look at your house for you, get you an estimate on whatever you want. But this is what we're going to sell the value of the visit.
Yeah.
And
we used to hire some people from other companies where, we have some really strong people that came from Power, for example. So they're almost all door knocking. So last year they complained that we didn't have enough door knocking leads. So now I give them a bunch of door knocking leads and they're like, well, we like the internet leads better. Right. It's like, well, you're going to take them all. Right. But there is a different sales approach that it's not, one isn't easy over another. A door knocking lead is really hard for someone who's never worked those because that customer didn't wake up today and decided they needed something.
Yep.
So that inspection becomes much more, we've got guys that are good at selling internet and suck at selling canvassing, and then the opposite, right? So, with canvassing, they don't have, the complaint isn't that they're getting 3 estimates. It's, are they going to do anything? And they have no urgency, right?
Yep.
So they both can have a high NSLI if you're a good salesperson.
Yep. Still have to build the value of why to buy now. And the reason to buy now. I think that, so the question I have for you is, I think when it comes to selling, most companies are kind of stuck in if it's not a full replacement of a roof, or it's not 3 or more windows, if it's not, those, and I'm hearing you say you're not asking those qualifiers on the front end from projects ago. You're going to get out to a bunch of people who just want I'm just wanting my gutters repaired. This downspout needs to be repaired, or my, my roof's leaking in the back porch. I'd rather not buy a new roof right now. Are you doing repairs as necessary? And are you?
No, but the customer doesn't know that.
Okay. So when
I say that, it's not a bait and switch. So I want to be careful here. Totally. That's not what it is. It's just, we sell the value of a full home inspection, right? If we go out there and your roof's 5 years old, all your surfaces are 5 years old, then we're going to be the first. We're going to be the first to recommend that you get a repair. And by the way, we don't do that, but here's your full inspection, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Sometimes the roof's 5 years old though, and the last person out there wants us to repair it because the roofer that they hired last time won't honor any warranty or had terrible workmanship. Yep. So we convince them to get a new roof because we're a platinum preferred contractor and we stand behind our warranties. So we don't even know sometimes. We're all human beings. If I was going to pick the 10 appointments to go to, am I going to pick the one with the most apparent need and the lead source that I think is the best because I'm the marketing guy? Of course, but you never know what you're going to run to when you're out there. I just know that if you're the only one looking, right, and everybody else found that there's no opportunity there, and you're the only one out there, then you're not competing with 3 or 4 people because everybody else, call center screened it out for them.
Yeah,
right?
I love that. I think that's. I think if you take anything away, that's a huge piece just it's not to put that in the head of the sales rep of, that if you set an expectation that the person's got to need, interest, and desire, and the call center's got to screen that out on the front end. Well, what about what people want or what they don't know that they even need? And that's what you're even getting at, which I love. I think that's huge.
It's probably hard for us sometimes to bring people in with 10 or more years of home improvement sales experience because they don't want that. They know what they want and don't want. We're not all things to all people. We lose sales reps over this mindset, but we're a marketing driven company. So the marketers make the decision, not the sales guys.
Well, and I think there's not a whole lot of sales jobs in the world that you just show up every day with your 2 appointments that show up on your phone, and all your job is to go and close them.
No. And in fact, we come from a culture. The reason why we're so excited to build this and it's more scalable is because we came from a culture of when we were salespeople ourselves, we had to knock on doors ourselves, then go home with our 100 leads that we've had over the last 3 months and call them all ourselves and set up an appointment, and converting our own leads was even hard. Right. So it's like, having leads rain from the sky and just showing up for an appointment is, I mean, I wish I had that when I was 19 years old.
Yeah. Well,
right.
And yeah, absolutely. Door knocking and having to go, knock the door and sell the job is a totally different situation.
So you appreciate anything that's handed to you after that.
Absolutely. So do you have, are you guys believers in the one call close? Sales rep either sells it that day and they're done with it, or is that sales rep following?
As a consumer, I am not a believer in that, but our sales culture drives towards that. I'm glad I'm not in charge of that, because that's not my style personally. There's a lot of things that they do that I'm uncomfortable with, but I let the professionals do that. Fortunately, in home improvement, there's a lot of sales managers and wannabe sales managers, right? That have learned that style. It works for sales and marketing, but would I, as a consumer, respond to that? Maybe not.
Yeah.
But I also look back at, what do I really do? I tell people I get 3 estimates, but I go with the first person I like because I'm too busy. So I contradict myself all the time. I'm the easiest person to sell.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's hard sometimes to insert yourself as a consumer into how you should build your company. Right.
Yeah. So out of curiosity, when it comes to that, are you doing is that sales rep rehashing that with that homeowner? Do you have a rehash department that handles kind of getting back with any?
Yeah, we have a rehash department. So if they don't sell it the day of, then somebody else is going to call them.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of,
But I will tell you, it's not as much work as I thought when I started that department. I thought we'd pick up a lot more. It's pretty much do or die. I mean, there's a 5 or 10% pickup, but not. I still have a lot of work to do there. I'm overhauling rehash.
Yep.
It's more of a call center function now. It's not like really trained killer closers. So we're kind of revamping that. We think we can get more juice out of that. There's a lot of places that we're still missing the mark.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's part of growth here overall. And that's obviously you're doing something right, getting people in the door, keeping sales reps busy out there as well. And would you say obviously that your lead problem with roofing was that just opening up the qualifications to or was that finding new lead sources?
New lead sources, opening up the qualifications, not being, like I said, not being picky.
Yep.
It's all of the above.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's still, like I said, I don't look at roofing as my only lead source. I look at gutter leads as a roofing lead source.
Yep.
I look at, like I said, leads to me it's just fuel.
Yep.
Right. So if I open up a service, I mean, I tried it with windows and failed, so I'm not saying it always works, but if I open up siding and gutters and I bring this stuff in, it just gets me in the home, and we still end up selling more roofs than anything else, because that's what we're trained to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there is a finite number of leads with any vendor. I mean, I wish, Sean, you could give me more leads, right? There's a finite way that you're marketing, that each lead provider, I've had success in finding more lead providers this year than I've ever had. I don't know why. Maybe I'm getting lucky, but I mean, when I say that, it's still 90% failure. I tried a ton of stuff that doesn't work right all the time. So just over the years, you pick up 1 or 2 more, and they add to the mix. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
we've hired a CMO now too, someone far smarter than me. This is our first year of doing that, so I'm not the CMO anymore. He's helping with that as well. But there's not as many homegrown leads out there as I thought. It's Sean, your job is not easy. When you're sourcing leads, maybe it's easy to find crappy aggregated leads sometimes that don't work. There's lots of leads available out there, but when you're making them yourself, it might be 10 or 15% of our business. So it's like we're paying, it's the highest paid person we've ever paid, and we have big expectations, but it's not a game changer yet. It might take a year or two for him to really make an impact. Plus I'm addicted to buying leads. So I'm like, I'm not going to stop unless you give me something better. And if it is better, but it's only 10%, it doesn't really change things that much. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the in-person stuff is always valuable, and the canvassing, I mean, that 30% of your business from canvassing leads, I mean, that's huge. That's a huge.
Well, when it was 5 last year. Yeah. 5% last year.
Absolutely. Well, awesome. Any, I've been asking people here too, just on these, is I'll close with this. It's just any new tools that you're using, technologies or systems or anything like that has been catching your eye in the space that.
I think firstly, we are very, very analytics driven, right? I have a marketing analyst that basically is a guy that lives in a cave that has worked for me for 10 years, that just makes spreadsheets for anything I can dream up and think of, right? So it's not that my CRM always spits out what I need. So I think firstly, it's how you engage the lead. Like Sean, what I like about your leads is that you're like, well, I'm going to give you the appointment, right? Oh, I've tried the raw leads, and I think I might try the raw leads again because I always need more leads, right? But you're engaging in a way, and I think you're not calling them 100 times. I think you're doing more text campaign and more automations to get someone. And I think that's what some customers need, right? For us, it's like we call you like crazy, right? But I have learned that there are limits to that. When I'm overstaffed, I don't care. So I'm like, well, we're just going to keep calling because we've got nothing better to do today, right? But I mean, most of our customers, if they don't respond by the 4th call, when I'm understaffed, I keep that in mind in my CRM. It's like, well, it's going to stay in a high queue in my CRM for 4 calls. And then if it gets flushed down the toilet when I'm understaffed, that's okay. It doesn't affect conversions that much. Now I'm overstaffed because I have to be ahead of the sales staff. And again, I see the amount of lead volume out there. So we're calling more now. So that doesn't matter as much, but I know there's diminishing returns, right? The automations, like I use Hatch. So that's one of the automations. So using more automations, but then, I didn't get a lot from Hatch. So is that an endorsement for Hatch or not? No, it's only the system. Automations and texting is, in theory, it's great. But until you put campers that are like actively managing the campaign, it doesn't nurture the lead for you. So now that I have dedicated sources that I start using that, I have tons of transfers now, right? It's like I had to say, well, the platform isn't what doing it, but texting and automations, drip campaigns all play a role in this, because some customers just don't like getting bombarded by calls. So that gives me a 10% lift, right? Doing all that. Is it a wholesale change in the business for me? No. But those types of automations, but then still putting a human being that's responsible for that, and reports, and then us measuring how many meaningful contacts did we get to the call center. Those things help a lot.
And you're using a texting tool, like an automated texting tool, like an AI tool that drives inbound calls, right?
Yeah, but it has a human component to it, right? That's like, you can use something like Hatch, but until someone's actively like real time on it, you're just trying to get it to the point where someone who doesn't want to talk to someone at some point needs to, right? Right. Maybe you've got it figured out better than me, Sean, because that's your primary and that's your secret sauce. But I'm just starting to take a tool that I was ready to throw away and go, it's like, well, I still, like, it's not pure AI or automations, right? There's still a human being that has to, that the moment somebody engages, it needs to feel real. Right.
Absolutely. No, that's awesome. So there's a couple of companies out there like Verse and that are kind of lead activation tools. And
we do outsource as well.
And you use companies like that.
Yes.
Yeah, there's
So we'll do what we do inside, and then if we can't get a hold of it, we'll outsource that as well. And again, get small pickups.
Yep.
Right.
Yep,
It
absolutely.
comes at a cost, right? So it's like,
Yeah, it's not cheap.
if I can reactivate a lead and be under 3% marketing cost for that, because I have to also then pay contractor appointments or home advisor or whatever, right? Whatever source I'm using and revenue share, right? I'm paying twice, but so I have to keep that cost low to nurture that lead. But there's pickups. There's pickups everywhere. It's hard though to have too many human beings just doing the old school. I've tried it. Just let's take my 60,000 leads from last year, load them in a dialer, and use labor in the United States to make that work. It doesn't. I'm trying some outsourcing right now, but I think people get tired of getting bombarded with calls. There are limits.
Totally. Yep.
And the costs show it, right? You're like, well, I'm not getting any leads this way, and my marketing cost is going to 30%. So it's too hard. I need to leave the customer alone. Yeah.
Well, that's hard. Yeah, it's the labor or the mailers and all that kind of stuff, or whatever you're going to do that's going to cost money to get in touch with those old customers. It's still there's a point where it's not worth it anymore. Like you said, within the
we have a CMO, so we're playing with things like mailers now. I mean, that lead could cost me $500, $800, $1,000. Right. And I only get 4 or 5 of them, but it makes the sales reps happy. It's a high closing rate, so you get a few in there, but as a marketer, I can't stand it. Right. It's just, I let my CMO have different projects to try things, but I'm super skeptical.
Yep.
It's like I'm mostly a digital guy and a door knocking guy.
Yep. No, I hear you. So awesome. Well, Spencer, thank you so much for spending your time with us here today, and just a wealth of knowledge to be able to share with us. And how can we kind of honor you, or anyone reach out to you if they have questions or anything like that? You may or may not.
Yeah, I'm a big networker. If anybody in the industry wants to talk, and if they have something to share, then I'm willing to share. So I'm pretty easy. Yeah. Right. So if somebody at my level, I'll share a lot. If somebody's at my level, if somebody's super small and looking for just a little bit of general advice, I'm happy to give it as well.
Thank you, Spencer, for your time here today.
All right. Good luck, everybody. Happy hunting.